The forgotten legend. Deep in the heart of the galaxy, war was tearing civilizations apart. The Galactic Federation, an alliance of human and alien worlds, was on the brink of collapse. Their greatest enemy, the Zypherian Empire, was ruthless and powerful. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology advanced beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Every battle was a loss, every warfront was crumbling. Commander Rourke stood inside the dimly lit war room of the Federation's last stronghold. His tired eyes scanned the holographic map filled with red markers, each one representing a fallen planet. The war was not just going badly, it was nearly over. "Sir," a young officer spoke hesitantly, "we have lost contact with 3 more colonies." Rourke clenched his jaw. He knew what that meant. The Zypherian war machine had swallowed them whole, just as it had done with dozens of other worlds. There was no hope left, or so everyone believed. A tale from the past. Late at night, Rourke sat alone in the Federation's ancient archives. His fingers tapped through old records, desperate for anything, any forgotten weapon, any hidden strategy that could turn the tide of war. Most of the documents were useless. Old battle plans, outdated tactics, failed missions. Then, deep in the archives, he found something unusual. A classified report from centuries ago. The title was strange. Oblivion, the Phantom Warship. Rourke frowned. He had heard whispers about it before, an old legend told by retired soldiers. A warship unlike any other, built with technology beyond human understanding. It was said to have appeared in a great battle long ago, wiping out an entire enemy fleet before vanishing without a trace. But it was just a myth, wasn't it? His curiosity grew as he opened the report. What he found inside sent a chill down his spine. The coordinates of its last known location. A system deep within the HFY Nebula, a place no one had dared to explore for centuries. The impossible mission. The next morning, Rourke called a secret meeting with his most trusted officers. Lieutenant Carson, Engineer Vega, and Pilot Drax sat across from him. "You want us to go into a dead system, looking for a ghost ship?" Carson asked, raising an eyebrow. "With all due respect, sir, that sounds insane." "I know how it sounds," Rourke admitted, his voice firm. "But if even a fraction of this legend is true, this warship could change everything." Vega, the team's chief engineer, scanned the ancient documents. "If this ship exists, it's centuries old. Even if we find it, there's no guarantee it still works." "We don't have a choice," Rourke said. "Zypherians will reach Earth in months. We need something. Anything." The room fell silent. They all knew the truth. This war was lost unless they found a miracle. Finally, Drax, the reckless but skilled pilot, leaned back and smirked. "Well, I always wanted to see a ghost." The decision was made. They would go after the legend, into the unknown. Their ship, the Valkyrie, slipped into hyperspace, heading toward the unknown. The HFY Nebula was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. A vast cloud of swirling gas, radiation storms, and hidden dangers. Many ships had entered before. None had ever returned. As they approached, Vega monitored the scanners. No signs of activity, just endless dust and debris. Carson's voice was tense, or maybe something is hiding. The nebula's mist thickened, wrapping around the Valkyrie like a living thing. Red warning lights flashed on the control panel. "We're getting strange energy readings," Vega muttered. Then, through the thick clouds, a massive silhouette emerged. A ship. It was enormous, larger than anything built by the Federation or the Zypherians. The hull was dark, scarred by ancient battles, but still intact. The design was unfamiliar, almost alien, and yet something about it felt human. Rourke whispered the name. Oblivion. It was real. But before they could react, the ship's lights flickered on, as if waking from a deep sleep. A low, eerie hum filled the air. And then, something spoke. Unknown vessel detected. Identify yourselves. The crew froze. The legend had just become reality. The awakening of oblivion. The control room of the Valkyrie was dead silent. Rourke, Carson, Vega, and Drax exchanged uneasy glances as the deep mechanical voice echoed through their ship's speakers. Unknown vessel detected. Identify yourselves. Vega's fingers flew across the control panel, scanning for the source of the transmission. It's coming from the warship, but this signal is ancient. Whatever is speaking has been dormant for centuries. Rourke took a deep breath and activated the comms. This is Commander Rourke of the Galactic Federation. We seek entry. A pause. Then, a crackling reply. Federation. Confirm clearance code. Rourke's stomach tightened. The Federation hadn't even existed when Oblivion disappeared. There was no clearance code. Sir, Drax muttered. Pretty sure it's not gonna-like. We just found your address in a history book. Carson leaned forward. Maybe we can bypass it. Vega, can you? Before she could finish, the nebula around them shifted. The dust swirled unnaturally, like a storm moving at an unseen command. Then, with a deep thrum, Oblivion's massive cannons powered on. Red warning lights bathed the Valkyrie's cockpit. Target locked. Not good. Not good, Drax shouted, gripping the controls. The ancient warship was activating its weapons. A ship with a mind of its own. Vega, shut that thing down before it turns us into space dust. Rourke barked. I'm trying. She snapped, fingers flying over her console. The ship's systems aren't just old. They're alive. It's running an automated defense protocol. Oblivion wasn't just an abandoned relic. It was still operational, and it saw them as intruders. Drax yanked the Valkyrie's controls, narrowly dodging a massive energy cannon blast. The explosion sent waves of radiation through the nebula, shaking their ship violently. This is insane, Carson shouted. A ship that old shouldn't still be this powerful. No, Rourke muttered, eyes locked on the monstrous vessel. That's the point. This ship wasn't a relic. It wasn't just a legend. It was a weapon of war, waiting for a battle worthy of its return. The code that shouldn't exist. Vega suddenly gasped. Wait, I'm picking up an override command buried in the ship's system. A code, one that shouldn't exist. Rourke frowned. What do you mean? The Federation never had access to Oblivion's technology, but somehow, the ship is still connected to our encrypted military network. Someone, centuries ago, programmed a fail-safe into its system. Carson's eyes widened. Are you saying we can control it? Vega hesitated. If I can input the right sequence before it finishes charging its weapons, maybe. Drax yanked the controls hard, dodging another blast. Well, you better hurry up, because I am running out of fancy moves. Vega's hands flew across the interface. The numbers, the ancient language, the impossible encryption, it all lined up in a way that made no sense. It was as if the ship had been waiting for them. Finally, she pressed the last command. The warship froze. The glowing cannons dimmed. The storm around them stilled. And then, Oblivion spoke again. Override accepted. Welcome, Commander Rourke. Rourke's breath caught in his throat. It knew his name. The past comes alive. Inside the warship, the air was thick with silence. Dust floated in zero gravity, clinging to ancient walls. The ship's corridors were too perfect, untouched by time. Rourke, Carson, Vega, and Drax moved cautiously through the metal passageways, their boots echoing softly. The interior was massive, far more advanced than anything the Federation had ever built. This is impossible, Vega whispered. No ship should be this well preserved after so many centuries. Drax ran a hand along the smooth black walls. Feels like it was made yesterday. As they walked, holographic displays flickered to life. Glimpses of a forgotten war flashed before them. Battlefields lit by fire, alien fleets torn apart, a lone warship standing victorious against impossible odds. Oblivion's last battle. Then, a voice, softer now, almost human. Commander Rourke, you have come. A hologram flickered into view. A man stood before them, dressed in an old Federation uniform. His eyes were tired but sharp. He looked directly at Rourke. I was the last captain of Oblivion. If you are seeing this, then the war is not over. Rourke's hands clenched into fists. He had come looking for a legend. What he had found was something far bigger. The war wasn't just theirs to fight anymore. Oblivion was ready for battle. The lost captain's warning. Rourke stared at the flickering hologram, his pulse hammering. The image of the last captain of Oblivion stood tall, his gaze piercing through the centuries. If you are seeing this, then the war is not over. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Carson spoke first. What war? The galaxy has been at peace for nearly a century. The hologram's face remained solemn. No, peace is an illusion. The real enemy never fell. The room fell into a stunned silence. An enemy that never fell. Rourke took a step forward. Who are you talking about? The hologram's expression darkened. The ones who erased us from history, the ones who feared what we had built. A sudden surge of power pulsed through the ship, and the hologram flickered. The warship's systems were coming back online, and with them, a warning buried for centuries. The truth hidden in Oblivion. Vega's console beeped. She scanned the new data streaming in. This is impossible. Drax leaned over. What? She turned the screen toward them. These logs show that Oblivion was never lost in battle. It was sealed away. Deliberately. Carson's brows furrowed. By who? Vega hesitated, then spoke two words that sent ice through Rourke's veins. The Federation. A heavy silence fell over them. Rourke clenched his fists. Why would the Federation bury one of its own warships? The hologram answered before Vega could. Because we became too strong. Too dangerous. Our own leaders feared us. The crew was speechless. Oblivion had not been abandoned. It had been silenced. Drax let out a low whistle. So, what? The old Federation built a ship so powerful that they had to hide it. The hologram's eyes bore into Rourke's. Not just a ship. A fleet. We were meant to be humanity's greatest defense against an enemy that could not be defeated. The word sent a chill down Rourke's spine. What enemy? He asked again. The hologram's voice dropped to a whisper. Look outside. They were never alone. Rourke felt a deep sense of dread as he moved to the warship's viewing deck. The crew followed, their footsteps eerily quiet. Through the massive observation window, the nebula swirled in a hypnotic dance of light and shadow. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then, shapes began to move. Dark, silent figures slipped through the swirling dust clouds. At first glance, they looked like shifting shadows, but then Rourke saw it. Ships, hundreds of them. Carson cursed under her breath. Tell me those are asteroids. Vega's scanner disagreed. Negative. Those are ships, but they have no heat signatures, no signals, no life signs. Drax's voice was barely a whisper. Then what the hell are they? Rourke's jaw tightened. He had seen countless warships in his lifetime. But these weren't made by any species he knew. And yet, they had been waiting. The hologram spoke again. They were watching us before the Federation was even born. They saw our wars, our growth, our power, and when we built Oblivion, they knew. They knew we were the only ones who could stop them. Rourke's heart pounded. This warship had not been hidden away out of fear. It had been sealed to keep something contained. But now, after centuries of silence, Oblivion had awakened. And so had its enemies. The storm breaks. Without warning, the warship's alarms shrieked to life. Ingenuity hostiles. The shadow-like ships had begun to move toward them. Vega's console erupted with red warnings. They're targeting us. Drax's hands flew to the controls. Can we outrun them? Oblivion's systems rumbled back to life, weapons humming with forgotten power. The ship wanted to fight. Rourke's grip tightened around the railing. The enemy had waited for centuries. They had let humanity believe they were safe. Now the myth of oblivion was real again, and the war was about to begin. The first strike. Rourke's pulse hammered as the alarm blared through the warship. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge, casting eerie shadows on the crew's tense faces. Aim-Kyo main hostiles. Multiple unknown vessels approaching. Vega's fingers danced across the console. They're accelerating. Fast. Carson cursed under her breath. How the hell are they moving like that? No known thruster trails, no energy signatures. It's like they're just gliding. Rourke's eyes narrowed. No ship moved like that. Not in any human fleet. Oblivion's weapons, can we fight? He demanded. The ship answered. Deep beneath the deck, a low hum vibrated through the metal, a sound long forgotten by time itself. Oblivion was waking up. Drax checked the systems. Weapons are online. But he hesitated. But what? Rourke snapped. Drax swallowed. The ship's targeting systems. They already have data on these enemies. Silence. Carson frowned. That's impossible. No one in the Federation has ever fought them before. Vega's voice was quiet. Then who did? Rourke exhaled slowly. The truth was beginning to unfold, and it was worse than he'd imagined. Oblivion had fought them before. And somehow, humanity had forgotten. The Dark Ones reveal themselves. The shadow ships moved closer, their forms barely distinguishable against the backdrop of the nebula. No markings, no insignias, no life signs. But they were watching. Rourke clenched his fists. Fire a warning shot. Drax obeyed. Oblivion's massive railgun hummed to life, a streak of blue plasma tearing through the void. The shot passed close to the nearest shadow ship, narrowly missing. The ship didn't move, didn't react. As if it hadn't even noticed. A chill ran down Rourke's spine. Then, without a single sound, the ship split apart. Not an explosion, not a reaction to the shot. It peeled open like something crawling out of a shell, and from within, they emerged. Something beyond life. By the void, Vega whispered. The things that stepped from the ship weren't soldiers. They weren't alive. Dark, elongated forms hovered in space, moving with unnatural grace. No limbs, no weapons, just shadows. Yet, the ship's sensors screamed with alerts. Drax's voice was strained. Oblivion is recognizing them as high-threat entities. Rourke took a deep breath. Then target them. Drax hesitated. That's the thing, Captain. The targeting system. It won't lock on. What? Drax's hands trembled as he tried again. It's like they don't exist. Rourke's stomach twisted. Then why does Oblivion know them? The warship's ancient AI finally spoke. Correction. They are not unknown. The crew turned to the main display as ancient records flooded the screen. Thousands of years old, buried under restricted files. And one phrase repeated over and over again. EXILED from existence. Vega gasped. That's not possible. If something is erased from the records, it shouldn't exist anymore. Carson's voice was a whisper. Then why are they here? The war begins. Again. A low, eerie signal pulsed from the enemy ships. Then, the first attack came. The darkness moved. Not like weapons, not like energy blasts, but like a wave of nothingness surging toward oblivion. The warship shook violently. The lights flickered. The hum of the engine stuttered. Vega's face went pale. They're not attacking the ship's hull. They're attacking its presence. Rourke gritted his teeth. Counterattack. Now, Drax activated Oblivion's ancient arsenal. The ship roared to life and fired. Massive plasma rounds tore into the void. The ship's forgotten weapons unleashed a storm that had not been seen in centuries. For a moment, silence. Then, the enemy screamed. Not a sound, not something that could be heard, but something felt. The crew clutched their heads as a deep, inhuman wail reverberated through their very bones. The darkness reeled back. The legends were true. Oblivion was never meant to be a warship. It was a weapon against something humanity was never supposed to remember. And now, the war had begun again. The ghosts of war. Rourke gripped the console as Oblivion trembled beneath his feet. The ship had fired its ancient weapons, and the darkness had screamed. But it wasn't gone. It was angry. A warship's forgotten purpose. The ship's power levels are unstable, Vega called out. It's reacting to something. Carson's fingers flew across the interface. Oblivion isn't just attacking them. It's responding to them. Drax's face was grim, like it's remembering why it exists. Rourke clenched his jaw. We need answers. Now. The AI's voice returned, ancient and cold. Query recognized. Initiating restricted data retrieval. The screen flickered. Then, a series of classified logs emerged from the void of history. Project Oblivion. Date. WARIDACTED. Purpose. WARIDACTED. Status. Last deployed. Mission incomplete. Vega's hand shook. This ship wasn't just built for war. Carson exhaled sharply. It was built to erase something. And that something was now returning. The void strikes back. Outside the ship, the darkness moved again. But this time, it wasn't just attacking. It was learning. The shadows shifted, merging, twisting, forming something new. Vega's voice was barely a whisper. It's adapting. Then the shadows lashed out. A ripple of nothingness shot toward them. Oblivion's shields flared, then collapsed instantly. The ship lurched. Systems flickered. Lights dimmed. And for the first time, Rourke felt something he never expected. A presence. Not just an enemy, but something old, something aware, something that knew exactly what Oblivion was. A deep guttural whisper echoed through the bridge. You should not be here. The crew froze. Carson's breath hitched. What was that? No one answered, because the truth was sinking in. This wasn't just a battle. It was a reckoning. Oblivion was never meant to be found again, and now the things it was built to destroy had come to finish what they started. The ship's last secret. Rourke forced himself to focus. Vega, is there anything left in the ship's archives? She frantically searched. There's a final file, but it's encrypted. Oblivion's AI spoke again. Final protocol engaged, unsealing the truth. The screen shifted, revealing a final mission directive. Parine eri obg. Tide. Seal the void. 3v enturi turn. At any cost. A cold weight settled in Rourke's chest. This ship wasn't designed to win. It was designed to sacrifice. To ensure that whatever these things were, they could never escape. And now the enemy was here, because Oblivion had failed. Drax swallowed. Captain, I think we just woke up something we weren't supposed to. Outside, the darkness began to gather. It wasn't retreating. It was preparing for the final strike. And this time, Oblivion wouldn't survive. The price of awakening. Oblivion's engines whined as the ship struggled against the force pressing in from all sides. The void was no longer attacking in waves. It was suffocating them, pressing against the hull like a living entity. Rourke wiped sweat from his brow. Status. Carson's voice was tight with fear. Shields are gone. Weapons at 20%. The ship is barely holding together. Vega's hands trembled over the console. The enemy isn't just attacking. She met Rourke's gaze, her face pale. It's waiting. For what? Then the whisper returned, louder, clearer, colder. You should not have returned. Rourke's pulse hammered. Who are you? Silence. Then the void answered, a memory that should have died. The ship's AI flickered. Final sequence initiated. Decrypting. The crew watched as the last classified log unfolded before their eyes. A face appeared. An old admiral, eyes heavy with regret. If you're seeing this, we failed. His voice was strained. Oblivion was never meant to return. It was meant to be lost. Forever. Because if the ship still exists, then so do they. A cold dread settled over Rourke. They, Vega whispered. The admiral continued. They were not an enemy we could defeat. Not with weapons, not with fleets. We thought we had a chance. We were wrong. The screen flickered, showing grainy footage of a battlefield that no history had ever recorded. Ships burned, planets crumbled, and in the center of it all, the void itself. It wasn't an army. It was a force, a hunger, the living extinction. And oblivion had been the last attempt to trap it. We sealed them away at a terrible cost, the admiral continued. But if you are watching this, that means the seal has broken. And now, they will finish what they started. The final stand. Rourke's knuckles turned white. So what? We're supposed to die, just like they did. The AI's voice interrupted. Final mission parameters unlocked. Initiating last resort protocol. A new command prompt appeared on the screen. Vega's eyes widened. Captain, it's offering a choice. Carson swallowed hard. What kind of choice? Rourke scanned the interface. It was clear. They could flee, try to escape into normal space, and warn the galaxy. Or they could stay, and finish what oblivion started. The whisper in the void grew louder. Run if you wish, but you will only delay the inevitable. Rourke exhaled sharply. His choice was already made. He turned to his crew. If we run, the galaxy dies. He looked at the flickering eye, then at the ancient warship they stood upon. If we fight, we might still lose. He met Vega's gaze, then Drax's, then Carson's. But at least we make it count. The ship trembled again. The void was preparing its final attack. Rourke stepped forward, and oblivion roared to life. The last gamble. Oblivion shook violently, its metal frame groaning under the pressure of the darkness pressing in. The enemy had waited long enough. Now it was coming to end everything. Rourke stood firm. His crew, his family, looked to him. They had made their choice. No retreat, no surrender. They would either win or be forgotten. The warship's final secret. Vega's fingers danced across the controls. Captain, the ship's core is responding to the protocol. The console flashed with ancient data. Carson paled. Rourke, I think I know why this ship was hidden. A warning appeared on the screen. Final we apon system. Doomsday protokeko enggd. Activation. Requires manual override. Drax's voice was low. Doomsday. Vega read the logs aloud, her voice trembling. Oblivion's last function wasn't just to trap them. It was to take them with it. Rourke's chest tightened. A self-destruct. Carson's jaw clenched. Not just that. Oblivion's reactor was designed to collapse into a singularity. A black hole. The air in the bridge grew heavy. Vega nodded. If we trigger it, we don't just destroy the enemy, we erase them. She looked at Rourke. And ourselves. Silence. Then the whisper returned. You cannot win. You will not escape. The shadows outside the ship began to move. They were preparing for their final strike. Rourke's heart pounded. He looked at his crew. We finish this. No hesitation. No fear. Just purpose. A battle that will never be remembered. The void unleashed itself. A wave of pure darkness crashed toward them. Oblivion surged forward to meet it. Weapons roared. the last of the warship's power burning through the abyss. Drax fired the plasma cannons. Carson rerouted all energy to the shields. Vega's hands flew over the console, locking in the override sequence. The enemy howled, and the ship sang back, a final melody of defiance. Final sequence. Armed. The ship's eye whispered its last words. "Goodbye, Captain." Rourke's breath was steady. He pressed the final command. Oblivion. Now. A deep guttural rumble shook the warship. The core collapsed. A vortex ripped through space. The void screamed. For the first time, the enemy felt fear. The shadows twisted, writhing in agony as they were dragged into nothingness. And in the center of it all, oblivion vanished. Echoes in the dark. Silence. The battlefield was empty. No wreckage. No remains. No warship. Just the cold, quiet void. The galaxy would never know the sacrifice made that day. But somewhere, deep in the fabric of the universe, the legend of oblivion lived on. And the enemy would never return.